Good morning, friends. I hope that you are enjoying the last holiday concert. I cannot wait to read what happens next. So today we are going to be reading chapters 14 and 15 together. Chapter 14 is titled Mutiny. During those 7 class periods as the newly elected chorus director, Hart Evans had never felt so good about himself, about life in general, even about school. Everything was so much fun. Life was all yes, nothing but yes. For one thing, Hart had reached a new level of popularity. Now he was known and admired by all the kids at Palmer Intermediate, not just the kids from his old elementary school. He was getting to be famous. He was doing something interesting. He was running the show in the chorus room. And for those first 7 classes, everyone had been having a blast. And why not? It was a huge creative free-for-all. Do whatever you want to. Dream big. Ask Hart anything. And you know what he says? He says, great, or go for it, or sounds amazing. The news had spread. All over school, the guys thought Hart was cool, and the girls thought he was cute. He was enjoying himself, but in the back of his mind, Hart knew it couldn't go on like this. Everything was too fuzzy, too loose, always slightly out of focus. There were lots of ideas floating around, and everyone was having fun. But the concert itself wasn't coming together, and the class periods kept ticking by. Hart saw that part of his problem was with human nature itself. Without a teacher to keep all the kids mixed together, the chorus had sorted itself into some basic personality types, and Hart had identified 3 groups: the doers, the floaters, and the goofers. Some kids didn't fit neatly into those 3 main groups, so Hart had identified the floaty doers, the half-goofy floaters, and worst of all, the floaty goofers. And then there was Tim Miller. Tim was a floaty, goofy doer. The serious goofers were mostly guys, and they had taken over the back corner of the room next to the windows. For them, chorus had turned into goofer heaven. 3 or 4 goofers played cards every day. Someone always had a hacky sack in the air, and another 1 or 2 goofers just plugged into their CD players or iPods or Game Boys and zoned out for an hour. Goofers weren't productive, but they weren't disruptive either. The floaty goofers were a problem, but fortunately, there were only 2 of them, Sarah Booth and Kyle Gannon. Sarah and Kyle worked as a team, roaming around the room. Who changed those songs on the chalkboard into Froggy the Snot Man, Jungle Smell Rock, and The Little Dumber Boy? Kyle and Sarah. Who glued Colleen's backpack to the wall and put silver glitter in Ross's hair? Guess. At least once each period, Mr. Minyard had to give Kyle and Sarah the evil eye, and that helped. But floaty goofers need constant discipline, and the chorus, according to Hart, wasn't set up that way. The pure floaters and the floaty doers and the half-goofy floaters were fine as long as the doers kept them busy. Colleen was actually a super doer, and she was also the biggest employer in the room. She had a crew of at least 15 floaty types cutting out stars and streamers, and she kept them busy and focused all day, every day. Ross had 2 floaters and 1 floaty doer helping him get all the songs organized into groups, copied off the chalkboard, and neatly typed into Mr. Minyard's computer. There were also other doers like Allison Kim and Jim Barker, who had assembled small groups of floaters to help them with their projects. And then there were also solo doers like the Nutcracker Dancers and Carl Preston the Magician, who were busily organizing their own little events. Plus, Lisa Morton, who was still working on a way to make herself fly around the stage like an angel. After a hard look at the calendar at the beginning of the 2nd week of December, Hart knew it was time to get serious. He had to start making decisions. It was time to take charge, time to get things organized, and it was certainly time to begin singing. Half the rehearsal days were gone, and the chorus hadn't sung a single note yet, at least not together, not as the chorus. So on Tuesday, December 7th, Hart took his concert notes home. That night after dinner, he looked at the long list of possible activities. He looked over Ross's list of recommended songs, and then Hart began being the director. After an hour of thinking and rethinking, he turned on the computer in the family room and began to write, assembling the concert. Then he turned on the printer and made 75 copies. At the beginning of the chorus period on December 8th, with 11 rehearsal days to go, Hart called the chorus to order and passed out the programs. "Hey," yelled Tim Miller, "how come my name's not on the program?" Carl shouted, "And what about my card trick?" From the back of the room, a girl called out, "Who said we wanted to sing The Little Drummer Boy? That's such a stupid song." "Yeah," said Kyle, "the little dumber boy." Colleen raised her hand and Hart pointed at her, expecting a little support from his trusty lieutenant, but the pleasure cruise was over. Colleen held up the program and said, "Really, Hart? This looks like a regular old concert. We all walk onto the stage, we sing 6 songs, and then we turn around and leave? I don't see anything special about this. And that was the whole idea, to make it special. I don't think..." Hart shook his head. Wait. Let me explain. See, we don't just walk on stage, because this program, right now, it's only a list of the songs, and there's stuff left out. Like at the start of when we sing The Little Drummer Boy, we have 3 drummers, me and Kenny and Tom, and we beat out the rhythm while everyone marches onto the stage singing the song. That's different. Maybe some kids would be carrying the big banner, "Welcome to Winter Hope." And then Jingle Bells, that'll be a sing-along like karaoke with the words on a screen so everyone in the audience can sing. Everybody loves that song, so that's different too. And during the dreidel song, Jenna and Max are going to be banging all over in those big rubbery costumes, even out in the audience. That'll be really funny. And when we sing the first Noel, Shannon and Olivia can do some ballet stuff down in front, because that'd look good, don't you think? So it's not just like a regular concert. There's tons of different stuff. Working it out in his mind the night before, the program had made perfect sense to Captain Hart. The crew didn't see it that way. Everyone burst out at once. "These are the worst songs." "Yeah, and all that other stuff, it's so lame." "I think the program stinks." "Yeah, me too. It's so like boring." "Yeah, it's boring." Carl Preston stood up and said, "How come I can't do my card trick? It's really good." Olivia Lambert said, "I am not going to do any ballet dancing unless I can dance to my own music and be a marzipan shepherdess." Shannon Rhoda nodded and said, "Me either." Hart felt crushed, but also angry. He yelled, "Quiet, everybody quiet." The room calmed down. "We are not having card tricks and ballet numbers and gymnastic routines. This is not a talent show, okay? It's a holiday concert and we're the chorus. That's the whole idea. We can do different stuff, but we still have to sing because we're the chorus." Tim Miller jumped to his feet. "But I still get to be Elvis, right? Dressed up like Santa Claus?" Hart nodded. "Yes, but you can't just bounce around on stage the whole time. You're going to be out in front and do a lip sync when we sing the 5th number. That's Blue Christmas, okay?" Tim looked shocked. No, that's not it. I'm going to be like all over the place all the time, like a clown at the circus. I'm going to be so funny, like really, really, really funny." And grabbing his air guitar, Tim swiveled over to Melanie Ensign and put his cheek close to her face, and in his best Tennessee accent said, "How'd you like to give Elvis a big old kiss?" That got some kids laughing, but most of the chorus was still upset with the program. And after a couple more loud complaints, Hart had had enough. "Listen," he said, "I'm the director, and for now, this is the concert, so deal with it. We've only got 11 days. Only 11 days. And we have to get it all pulled together. And we have to rehearse the songs and everything else too. So let's just do it. We have to do it." Ed Farley, the king of the goofers, shouted out, "How come we have to do it?" And 3 or 4 other kids yelled, "Yeah, how come?" Hart Evans pulled himself up to his full height and glared at Ed, cold fury crackling in his eyes. Then Hart shouted something he had never, ever said before, something he could never have imagined himself saying, not in a million years. How come? He yelled. Because I said so. That's how come. Now let's get to work. Boys over on this side of the room. Girls over there. Ross, pass out the sheets with the words to the little drummer boy. Now! And the kids obeyed him. When everyone was in place, Hart turned and said, Mr. Minyard, I need you to play the piano. And for the next 35 minutes, Hart stood at the front of the room, pointing first at the boys, and then at the girls as the chorus rehearsed the little drummer boy. Hart had Kenny playing along on a snare drum. It didn't sound bad, but it wasn't great either. The period ended and the kids began to gather up their things. There was no laughing, no chatter as the room emptied. No one looked at Hart. No one went near him. Walking out of the room, Hart was right behind Shannon Rhoda. In the most cheerful voice he could manage, Hart said, Hey, Shannon, that went okay, don't you think? She stopped in the doorway and turned to look at him. So did Olivia. Shannon said, Are you talking to me? Because don't. You're just like Mr. Minyard, only shorter and meaner. And you know what you are? Shannon narrowed her green eyes and hissed, You are a teacher. Chapter 15, Deep Waters. Another beautiful day. Cold, but bright and sunny. Perfect December day, don't you think? Hart nodded at his dad, and he tried to smile a little, tried to act like he cared about the weather, but he didn't. It was only 7:15 on Thursday morning, and Hart was already thinking about chorus, about the concert, about what a huge mess it was. It was all he could think about all day, every day, all night, every night. Staring down at the blue and white plate, Hart took another bite of toast. Hart's mom caught her husband's eye and then nodded toward their son, raising her eyebrows. The look said, Go on, keep talking. Can't you see he needs help? Because it was clear to everyone in the family that Hart was going through some deep waters. Even Sarah knew something was up. 2 days ago, Hart had come into his room after school and caught her there, back at his workbench in the corner. She was sitting in his chair, actually holding Hart's small, high-speed electric drill in her hand. Hey, what are you doing in here? That part had been pretty normal when Hart shouted at her. Sarah gulped and held out her left hand. I want to make a hole in this shell I found in Florida. I want to put it on a chain like a necklace. It was the next part that had tipped her off, because instead of yelling some more and grabbing her arm and pushing her out of his room, Hart had said, Well, be careful. That's a diamond drill bit on that thing, and it'll go right through your finger. Then Hart flopped onto his bed, pulled a clipboard and pencil out of his backpack, and started writing. The evidence was clear to Sarah. Something was definitely weird in Hartsville. His mom had begun to notice it right after Thanksgiving. Little things at first, like forgetting to stay after school and sign up for the winter indoor soccer league, and spending more time on the phone, sometimes getting 2 or 3 phone calls a night from boys she had never heard of, and girls too. And why was he singing that little drummer boy song in the shower every morning? Even more puzzling, after all Hart had said about the new computer games he was hoping for, she had had to ask him 3 times to make a Christmas list. Hart's dad took a sip of orange juice and then said, So Hart, how about a ride to school today? We can leave early and take the long way, even take a spin out onto the parkway if the traffic's not too bad. How about it? That got Hart's attention. The little silver sports car was not to be ignored, no matter what. Yeah, that'd be great. 5 minutes? Hart nodded. I'll be ready. And he was, a full 2 minutes early, with book bags stowed in the trunk and seatbelt tied across his chest. His dad backed out of the driveway, put the car in first gear, and said, Hold on. He punched the gas and zip, the car jumped to 40 miles an hour in about a second and a half, pushing Hart straight back into the tan leather seat. He grinned over at his dad and said, Sweet. The car had some serious sizzle, and Hart loved the way the thing hugged the ground as they shot around the corner onto Oak Road. His dad kept the car right at the speed limit, cruising along on the winding back roads for about 10 miles. Then he had to slow down when he turned onto a busy highway that led out to the parkway. His dad pushed a button and the small screen in the center of the dashboard lit up. At another tap, the screen showed a map, a little grid of streets and highways, and it was littered with blinking red octagons. That's the GPS traffic advisory screen. See those little stop signs? His dad asked. Hart nodded. Those are traffic delays. We'd better not try the parkway, so I'm going to turn around up there at the circle and head back the way we came. As they worked their way through the crowded intersection, Hart kept craning his neck to see the drivers of the other cars, checking out the passengers too, watching to see the looks on their faces when they saw how amazing his dad's car was. And people did notice. Hart grinned. Don't you love how everybody looks at you when you drive around in this car? It's like they can't help it. His dad gave a short laugh. I almost didn't get this car for that very reason. Hart turned to look at his dad. No way. I'm serious. I could care less about what anybody thinks about me or this car or me driving around in this car. That's not why I bought it. As they stopped at a red light, Hart nodded at a teenage boy driving a small pickup. He had two of his friends squeezed into the small cab with him. See the kid in the truck next to us? The guy in the Yankees cap? He's been staring at this car for 2 minutes, talking to his buddies about it, just wishing he could take it for a drive. And you don't think that's cool? His dad smiled and shrugged. No, because I really don't care. I'm not trying to make people envy me. I just want to drive a beautifully engineered automobile. This car, it's like driving a Swiss watch. Everything works perfectly. Everything does exactly what it's supposed to with no wasted energy, no wasted motion, and all that power under perfect control. It's just a great machine, and that's all I care about, honestly. Hart was quiet as his dad put the car through its paces again along the back roads, headed toward school. After a few minutes, his dad said, You haven't seemed much like yourself in the past week or so, Hart. Something been bothering you? Hart shook his head. Nah, just school stuff. Bunch of kids are kind of mad at me. Angry? At you? What about? Just some stupid stuff. In chorus, there's a concert and I'm sort of in charge of it, and it's like I can't do anything right. Everybody wants to do stuff their way. Well, how come you're in charge? What about the teacher, Mr. What's his name? Minyard, Mr. Minyard. He's there too, but I'm supposed to get the thing organized. Ah, so you're the boss. Hart gave a sarcastic little snort. You could say that, except nobody does what I tell them to. It was quiet for another mile or so. Then Hart's dad said, I've had a little experience of being a boss, you know. It's not easy because you can't just give orders. I spend a lot of my time listening. People aren't going to do something. I mean, they won't do it well unless they really want to. Hart looked out the window, watching the leafless woods fly by, a gray and brown blur. As the car swung into the circle at the front of the school, his dad said, It'll all work out, Hart. You're a good boss, a good leader. Kids look up to you. They always have. Something will open up. Try listening a little more. That's what always helps me. He was about to reply to his dad, but when they came to a stop right in front of the main doors, Hart had a memory burst. He sat up straight as it jolted into his mind. He knew this moment. He had run this scene in his mind a dozen times. This was his big school drop-off scene, the moment to emerge from the very cool car just the way he had imagined it. As his dad pulled the lever to pop open the trunk, Hart glanced around to check out his audience. The buses hadn't arrived, so the front of the school was practically deserted. Pretty disappointing. But about 30 feet away, 4 girls stood waiting near bus stop number 2. It wasn't exactly the admiring crowd Hart had pictured, but the flashy car had definitely caught the girls' attention, so Hart decided to make the most of it. Hart could tell that all 4 heads turned as he made a smooth exit from the car, stepped to the trunk, and pulled out his backpack. He walked back to the open door, leaned down, and smiled at his dad. Thanks for the ride and for what you said. His dad smiled back. You have a great day, all right? See you tonight. Hart pushed the door shut, and just as he'd imagined it, the little bullet car purred away from the curb, blinked, turned left, and then sped off down Highway 12. And now it was time to see the girl smile. Perhaps nod or wave, or maybe even hurry over and say, Is that your dad's car? It's so cool. Hart pivoted slowly, a generous smile on his face. The girls stood there. They glared at Hart a moment, and then, almost in perfect unison, they turned their backs and walked away. And as they did, Hart knew why. They were all members of the 6th grade chorus.